Hello and welcome back to London Cycle Routes. Today I'll be showing you how to cycle from Westminster in central London to Canary Wharf in East London. This ride takes about half an hour and you can do the whole thing on some very high quality protected cycle lanes with short stretches on quiet streets as well. If you enjoy this video or you find it useful, then please don't forget to subscribe to the channel because I post new ones like it here every week. Alright, let's get going. So we're starting on Parliament Square and you want to head up Bridge Street towards Westminster Bridge. You've got Big Ben on your right there, currently covered in a load of scaffolding, and on your left that's Portcullis House. That's an office building in which a lot of MPs have got their offices. And actually, fun fact, there's actually a tunnel under the road where we are now connecting the two. That's part of the parliamentary estate. Now you wait for the traffic lights here and you head right down the Victoria Embankment. You've got the London Eye there on your right, and on the left there that's Norman Shaw building, so that's another parliamentary office building. Yeah, this is a really good cycleway. It's probably one of the best in London. It's really the gold standard. It was put in by Boris Johnson when he was mayor in his second term, and it basically runs all the way down the embankment, and we're going to be substantially following this most of the way, and also some of the other cycleways that it leads on to today. There's a little bit of disruption here, so they're actually building a massive sewer. And for a few years now this has been closed off and it will be closed off for a little bit further, but they've put in this excellent diversion. So the lane used to run by the river, but for now it runs around it. One thing I would say is be careful, especially when you're coming the opposite direction, because the corner is a little bit blind, as sometimes you get pedestrians walking in it, so you don't want to hit anybody or anything like that, so do take it careful around the corner. Just coming up on our right here is an interesting landmark. It is called Cleopatra's Needle. It is an ancient Egyptian needle dating from 1450 BC. There's actually one just like it in New York City as well, and they were both gifts of the Ottoman governor of Egypt. Neither of them have anything to do with Cleopatra, apparently. Now, we're just about to go under Waterloo Bridge, and you can see here that you can't actually cycle straight from the embankment to Waterloo Bridge because they're on different levels. If you ever do need to get from this lower level up to the bridge, the way to do it is actually to head up Savoy Street, which goes up past the Savoy Hotel. It's on the left there, just before we got to the bridge, and that has a little cut through, and it allows you to get to the junction on the northwest side of Waterloo Bridge, and then you can head across it there. Alternatively, you could just keep going down the embankment here, and we'll soon be getting to Blackfriars Bridge, which is a lot easier to access from the level of the cycleway. One thing I really like about cycling on the embankment is that it just always looks busy on the cycleway. There's always loads of cyclists. You can see we're always passing people, even though it's grey in the middle of the day on a weekday. And by the way, one thing about counting cyclists and cars, it's always a bit misleading because cars take up so much space, but you pass like 3 or 4 cars and it looks like a lot. But look at this ahead of us. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then including us 7 cyclists. If those 7 there's an 8th one. If those 8 cyclists were all arrayed in cars stretching down the road, you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cars. That looks like a lot of cars, but with cyclists, because it's such an efficient mode of transport, they're all squashed in, and that really just shows how fantastic cycling infrastructure is, because it's so efficient. It can squeeze so much capacity out of a much smaller section of route. But there is the sort of bit where you look at it and it looks like not many people are using it, when actually just as many people are using it. They've just already got to their destination and there's plenty of space for more people. Now we're in Castle Baynard Street here. This is actually not a segregated cycleway, we're just following the route. This is a quiet street, it's access only. Normally when you come here there's no cars or vans at all, but those 2 vans are helpfully illustrating that it's access for the buildings that you can get to from the street. You shouldn't have any problem, but just be aware of that when you're cycling down here, because you can occasionally run into someone being silly and driving very fast. And talking of people being silly, this guy should not be there. This van is just parked in the cycle lane. I don't know what he thinks he's doing. He's on a double red, which is very much do not stop there. You'll see now, of course, that since we left the tunnel, we are now back on a segregated cycle lane, so there shouldn't be any vehicles in the cycleway at all. By the way, here on our right is Southwark Bridge. If you ever wanted to go over to Southwark Bridge, that'll take you onto sort of Cycle Superhighway 7 down towards Elephant and Castle. It's a reasonable cycleway. It used to be quite bad. It's been upgraded a little bit recently with some extra sort of protection. I don't really use it in videos because it's not quite there yet, I think, but it's definitely a lot better than it was before. As we come into the city, by the way, I always think it's quite nice on this stretch to look up and see what you're passing underneath, because there's a lot of bridges. So we're about to go underneath King William Street. That's actually the entrance to London Bridge. That's also inaccessible by bike, although you can go up some steps if you need to get to it. And then there's a pedestrian bridge here. This is basically part of the City of London pedways. I don't know if anybody has heard of the pedways. They are basically, it was originally planned to be a network of pedestrian walkways, kind of elevated walkways, connecting the buildings of the City of London, installed after World War II. A little bit like the Barbican, but writ large. There's still quite a few around kind of London Wall area, around the old Museum of London site, and I think that's a sort of vestige of one. Quite cool. There's something quite nice and utopian about them, although the original plan was really to leave the streets to motor traffic, which I don't think is good. But I mean, it'd be nice to have, streets for people and pedways for people. I could definitely get behind that, and I think there's something quite nice about it. Just coming up on our right here is the Tower of London, a sort of building which I think is probably best example of something in London which has absolutely no relevance to people who actually live in London, but is a massive site for tourists. And I reckon this whole area around here is neglected. I mean, that's a World Heritage Site, and there's like a busy 6-lane road running past it. I really think there's a sort of nice pedestrianish bit on the other side of the road, but it would be quite nice to sort of connect it all up a little bit and make it a little bit nicer. You can probably do a little bit better than having a highway there, but for cycling now it's basically fine. This is a really good cycle lane, and we go through this little cut through here on a shorter street. Now this is where the not brand new, but the relatively new segregated cycle lane ends, and we're actually going on to an older stretch of Cycleway. It gets a little bit narrower here. It's just had a bit of blue paint added. It really does predate the cycle superhighway thing. And it's still pretty good, I'd say. The thing that I find quite interesting about this one is this street, Royalman Street, and it's going to turn into Cable Street in a second, is actually pretty narrow. There's not really a lot of space, and this cycleway is quite narrow, and it does show that you can put a cycleway like this relatively comfortably on basically any street in London if you make it one way, and there's even space for car parking on the other side. That elevated railway on the left there, by the way, is the DLR extension into Tower Hill and towards Bank and the city generally. That sort of slightly newer concrete pillared structure is actually affixed to the side of the original line going into Fenchurch Street station. That's the more traditional sort of brick viaduct that's just to the left of it if you were to go and explore it. Now, if you've not been down this street before and you've got a few minutes, definitely make sure you stop in a second for what's coming up on our right. It's a brilliant mural dedicated to the Battle of Cable Street, when anti-fascists stopped the British Union of Fascists marching through this area of town. The mural is fantastic, and I could honestly stop and stare at it for hours. And yeah, we definitely need more municipal art like that all over the place. It's fantastic, it really brightens the place up, and it's a great sort of mark of the area's history as well. You can see we're making good progress through East London. We've just gone past Shadwell Station, so yeah. And a lovely thing I love to see here, someone carrying sort of a box on the back of their bike, using it as a sort of utility cycle. Nice thing about the cycle lane here, I love these little rainwater gardens either side of the cycle track. Not only do they look nice, they're good for the bees, and they also help prevent flooding, which is fantastic. All around great stuff. And by the way, if you enjoy this video, if you find it useful, then do make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the button below the video on YouTube. It is a channel where I post videos just like this all over London, and I post new ones every week, so yeah, don't miss out. This route is pretty simple, it's pretty self-explanatory, it's mostly in a straight line so far. It does get a little bit more complicated towards the end when we hit the back streets, so if you feel that you need a map, as always, I always put a link to the map of the video in the description below the YouTube video. I don't always remember to mention that in the video, but I do always post the link, so yeah, go and check it out if that's your thing. There's a funny bit here, by the way, where you have to cross the road. Make sure you check before you cross that road. I presume they switched sides because there was more space on one side or fewer side roads or something like that. But yeah, that's a pretty dangerous design back there. You need to be careful that there's not any cars coming. Now, we just go to a shared crossing here, and this is going to lead us into a little garden. So that's where that stretch ends, and this track here is a little bit weird. So we're supposed to stick on the right hand side of the path. It's a little bit narrow for two-way cycling, to be honest. Just yeah, be cautious. There will probably be pedestrians dawdling in the lane, and also people on bikes do absolutely bomb it down there because it's hills and it's it's a steep angle. Now there's also a short section here on a kind of painted cycle lane. It's a contraflow. It's actually a pretty good cycle lane as far as painted ones go, and they've added these little wands in to add a little bit of extra protection on the corner, but it's nice and wide. In the opposite direction, it's just on the carriageway. We're about to go onto a sort of just a street. Now this street's a bit of a mystery to me. It's called Narrow Street, and then it turns into Limehouse Causeway in a second. Every time I've come down here, no matter what time of day, it's always quiet. There's not really any cars. You see the odd one, but it's not really a major through route. As far as I know, this isn't a low traffic neighbourhood, and there's not any filtering or anything. There's always quite a lot of bikes on it. Don't really know why that is, so if anybody does know why it's so quiet, let me know. And by the way, we just cycled on our right past a pretty nice pub. It's called the Grapes. It's kind of an old-timey pub. It's owned by Sir Ian McKellen, aka Gandalf. It's probably one of the nicer ones around here. To be honest, I'm not a massive fan of the way this part of the Docklands has been redeveloped. It's quite low density. I wish they'd left more of the original warehouses. That'd be quite nice. Or just like built higher quality new buildings. It's a little bit low density, a lot of it. But that doesn't really bother us too much when we're cycling. So as you can see, we're not really running into too much traffic here. You want to stick to the CS3 lane here, the sort of the blue directions. Don't go straight out onto there. You want to turn right down here, and we go onto Salter Street. And there's a signalled crossing here, so make sure you pay attention to that. And there's this very windy sort of painted lane through Premier Place here. And there's a bloke playing tennis against the wall. Fortunately, he didn't hit us. That's quite funny. And yeah, there's no traffic there. That's all very good. That's quite neat. And you come out here. Now, this is where we break from the lane. You could have gone across the signal crossing here, but we're actually going down this shared pavement here. You could have seen there was a blue sign there saying you can cycle on this pavement. We're just coming on there, and we're coming out through the back of Canary Wharf. Now, you can either go right or left here. It's your choice, really. We're just going to get to the other side of these buildings. I've decided to go left. What we're going to do is we're going down this road. There's not really much traffic on it at all. And at our earliest opportunity, we want to turn right onto this sort of traffic-free area, pedestrianised area. Now, I've searched high and low, both in person when I was here for signs, and also on the Canary Wharf website when I got home, for any indication as to whether or not you could cycle on these paths and on this bridge. And I could not find a single thing saying that you could or couldn't do so. So it's a little bit ambiguous to me. It's clearly tolerated. This bridge in particular is quite narrow, so if you do it, then make sure you're extremely courteous to people. But I'm pretty sure you're allowed to cycle on the pathway here down Fisherman's Walk. It appears to basically be the Thames path, which I think by default you can cycle on. And also I passed a load of security guards in a second who see us all cycling and didn't say anything, so I'm pretty sure it's okay, but do be aware that I'm not sure whether you're technically allowed to be cycling down here, but it seems alright to me. Either way, just be respectful of pedestrians and you certainly won't get into any trouble. Alright, so that's it. That's Canary Wharf DLR station. We just popped up in the middle of Canary Wharf. You can see from the map that was an extremely direct route, and most of it was on really, really good segregated cycle lanes. Got a little bit confusing at the end maybe. There is actually another way into Canary Wharf. You can go via West Ferry Circus. I used to go that way until I discovered this most recent way, and it's a little bit more direct, but the problem is that you do have to lug your bike up a massive set of steps or use an elevator, which is fine, but not everybody likes to do that, and also it's more accessible, I think, to come this way. So yeah, thank you very much for watching again, and yeah, do subscribe to the channel and like the video and tell your friends about it, and try out these routes if you're not aware of them before, and let me know what you think of them, how you get on. See you again next time.